It's Friday, June 2nd, 2023. So, let's do our shill segment up front. Patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare. If you swing over to OzoneNightmare.com, or the show homepage, however you want to refer to it, you will see a set of links on the right. Little boxes with rounded corners. Because I don't like harsh corners on my rectangles. No, sorry, squares. So I like to round them. So you'll see rounded boxes. And among them is one that looks like a book, a little bookmark. It's a little squat thing. I think it's about midway down. Clicking on that will take you over to Lando's Amazon author page where you can buy his books. Along that same page, you will see a PayPal icon, I believe is the last one in the row. That one will take you to a PayPal donation link if you're averse to Patreon, which I understand people still are. So that's fine. 2 routes to donate. I'm sorry, I don't have any more. I'm not going to set up a million things. Some people say, oh, I'll do Ko-Fi or buy me a cup. I'm not doing all that stuff. Those 2 things, if anybody really wants those things, I'll do it. But nobody has really seriously said I won't. That's the only way I'll donate. Okay, fine. You know, I'll do it then. But nobody has pushed that hard. So it's fine.
Just send cash. Isn't that the line from No Agenda?
No, don't do that. I don't trust the mail. Don't send cash.
Okay, first off, it's a joke. But that's what they used to say, right? Just send cash.
Well, that was because President Bush literally said that for the Katrina thing, I think.
Yeah,
yes,
just
that
send
was the running
cash.
joke.
There you go.
It was when he and Bill Clinton did the thing, and he said, people want to send blankets and water. Just send us your cash. That's literally what he said. Because subtlety was what Bush Jr. was all about. Shill segment over, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed 2 things. Code Ozone, as far as I know, still works for 2 months free of Libsyn. And on every Friday show, you will see a link to my Linktree that has all the links to all the different stuff I do. And I have been adding t-shirt designs. If you're into t-shirts anything that Threadless will allow me to sell, I sell. So any design should be on stickers or I'm hearing the Skype beep. Wait, did he come back?
Oh,
there it is. Yeah, what happened?
Oh, we just had some weird shit going on here.
Your quality is rough on my end, which is fine because you record locally.
Yeah,
so I don't care.
I was wondering why my quality was being so weird.
Yeah,
and it's because my computer had somehow connected to my phone and was using the personal hotspot.
Okay, I thought it was just the Skype thing because I did a speed test in the background, and I was like, "No, my speed's good, but maybe it's just temporary."
But I'll tell you what's weird. My personal hotspot is off on my phone.
No, there's something going on with phone connections, and I'm on Android and you're on iOS, so it's not even one or the other.
Yeah.
I've noticed lately stuff like that happening where,
even though it's off.
Well, that devices are trying to be too smart. So, for example, we have a Bluetooth speaker in our shower, and occasionally my phone will wake it up and connect to it, even though I've turned it off. Because it's probably a proximity thing. And the thing you're talking about, the hotspot, I've seen something like that within the last 3 or 4 months.
It's just weird because the hotspot is off, and that's why But you sounded
but you have to remember,
tinny,
you're on a Mac and an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
These devices try to think for you.
Oh,
So you have to remember,
I hate
especially
that.
especially in closed ecosystems, they're all like, "Oh, I want to anticipate your needs, sir. Let me turn the. Yeah, do you need a hotspot? It's like that.
Let us all talk. We want to talk. We all want to talk. Just let us all talk.
Yeah, let us all.
Yes,
So now,
I hate
are
that
you on
so
the
much.
correct Wi-Fi now or not?
I'm on my Wi-Fi now. Yeah, but I was wondering why it was so tinny. And when I checked the Wi-Fi to see like what was going on, I noticed that I was on the personal hotspot, which confused the fuck out of me because it's fucking off. So
Right. Yeah, no, or
yeah,
it's not.
and amazingly,
or it's not.
I'll tell you
real.
what's amazing that it switched to my Wi-Fi and didn't drop the call.
No, those things are getting better. I will say that the services are getting better about doing preservation for at least a couple of minutes. So I think, so I've added stuff to the Threadless shop, and anything I add there is on everything that's not some weird embroidered thing. So stickers, socks, whatever. If there's anything that you like of my designs, you should be able to get it in nearly every possible permutation outside of, again, specialty items where they're going to charge you like $200. So I'm not even going to bother with that stuff. So that's the show segment and a minor show disruption. Now, we started a little later than usual this evening because I don't remember how it came up, and certain people are going to appreciate this, and other people are going to be like, really? This is something that's a priority? But it is to some people. We were talking about, what were we talking about? I'm trying to remember what led to this discussion on movies. And my wife and I were talking about movies. And I said, what led to this? God, I'm trying to remember what led to this now. But in any event, whatever, I said something about the Shawshank Redemption. My wife casually said, oh, yeah, I never saw that. And I went, what? 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 And I kind of stopped then. Yes.
How has your wife
never
seen the Shawshank? She's seen Ichi the Killer, and she hasn't seen the Shawshank Redemption?
I know. But
wow.
The nice part is this was a huge softball lobbed my way because I made a gross miscalculation with Hard Boiled and bombed that one. So I knew in my head, I'm like,
she didn't like Hard Boiled?
Too much shooting. She doesn't like all the gun stuff, which I should have remembered. And I was gambling on Chow Yun Fat's coolness.
Don't show her Better Tomorrow too.
No, there's no more Jamu. Jamu's out.
Jamu's out.
Yeah, I mean, except for like Face Off. She likes Face Off because it's funny and garbagey. So that's okay. But anything serious, any of his best stuff, no, that's out the window. No, it's not going to happen. That's fine. Like I said, I thought Chow Yun Fat's effervescent charisma would overcome the blood and in fairness, she's not big into violence, and people get shot about 80 times every time they get shot. It's not like they get shot once and fall down with no blood spurt. They get shot to pieces a lot. So, and the other thing is I sometimes project what I like onto other people, and so I thought, oh, well, she'll surely appreciate the long one-shot take of the whole elevator sequence. No.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
No, that doesn't work. I mean... I could tell that it wasn't going well because I was going to bring up when that happened, the trivia bit that, okay, when the elevator doors close, understand that they had 30 seconds to redress that set before the doors open and they had to count it down perfectly and do it. I knew at that point there was no saving that, so I let that go. But that's why. I
just love the nerdy aspect of that.
Oh, yeah. That's why
when
she said
you should know when those doors open.
Yeah, no. She likes trivia, but only if it's going to be something that she actually enjoys. So when she said she hadn't seen this, I went, it's a sure bet. It's a sure bet. There is no chance this movie will not be a favorite. I knew that going in.
I'm not going to say no chance, but your likelihood is good.
Because she'd never seen Field of Dreams. And she loves that movie now. So I'm like, okay, this is in the same general area as something like Field of Dreams. It is a feel-good movie once you get to the end. Now, Field of Dreams, this is an interesting comparison. Field of Dreams is a more disposable movie, even though I love it. That movie at no point really challenges anything. You know what that movie's going to be the whole way through.
The thing I love about Field of Dreams is that there's never an explanation.
No, but it's like right. There's no explanation.
It's a good haunting. In fact, I think it's one of the rare movies that is a good haunting Because
Yes.
most of the time when you have a haunting in a cornfield, it's really bad.
Yeah.
But in that case of this movie, it's like a good haunting, and I
Right.
don't even know how many other movies are like that.
But
are there any other good haunting movies?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, it depends. If you mean purely throughout with nothing else, yeah. Well, purely. Well, that's an interesting question. Purely, probably some. I mean, they're going to be dumb movies like Ghost Dad and stuff like that. So,
yes, yeah, dumb movies.
Because technically Beetlejuice kind of is because they end up beneficial, but there's scary parts in there. Frighteners has an evil serial killer. Oh wait, actually.
Frighteners is pretty awesome, but
yeah, she hasn't seen that either. By the way,
but
that's
Frighteners is awesome.
I know.
I'm waiting on when I can show that one to my kids.
Yeah, that's a great.
I've been weighing that one out.
There's a couple of movies that she hasn't seen where I'm like, okay, these are like corner pocket 8 balls, no chance it misses. I know I'm fine. And she likes Michael J. Fox, and I know Frighteners is a good one. And so Field of Dreams. Great movie. We've watched it multiple times since we first saw it. I mean, I'd seen it a lot of times before she ever did. But there's really no stakes to that movie. If you really analyze it, I mean, they might lose the farm. And of course, in this movie, they're not going to lose the farm because the ghosts are real. The whole thing is banking on the fact that the ghosts are imaginary, or if they were to be imaginary or nobody, but that they're real. There's never a doubt that those phantoms are there.
The only scene in that movie that's got any kind of, I guess, like, I don't know, like stake is when the kid's choking. Isn't he's choking?
Yeah, but even that doesn't, because the one guy is a doctor, so exactly what that's setting up.
What I mean is he leaves the glamour.
Well, he does, but he got to play baseball.
Save the kid.
So again,
I know. But what I'm saying is that's the only stakes you ever feel in that movie.
Yeah, and even there, at no point do you actually believe that little girl is going to die. At that point in the movie, what they're setting up is the ending of the film, and this is to prove to the brother that this is real.
Yeah, it's not like My Girl. Where,
no, I love that movie when that kid dies. I love when that kid gets eaten up by the bees. I love it. Yeah.
It's such a left turn for that movie, isn't it?
That movie.
Like all of a sudden you're like, what? They killed him?
Yeah. That movie for a certain person is the same as Field of Dreams, which many people say is overly sappy and emotional, and I understand it is. I just don't care. So it doesn't matter. So I shouldn't make fun of My Girl. It's the same thing for a different type of audience. Same thing, but somebody actually dies in that. Whereas in Field of Dreams, even less stakes. So that one doesn't really have a lot of emotional punch in comparison to something like My Girl, where a child dies. So for a lot of people, that's going to be a very sad event. It's very emotional in the movie. Like, I understand what its function is.
And they double down too, because it's not just that the kid dies, but also her dad is the mortician, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. So so he puts on the funeral. Yeah.
So it's it makes it even worse.
So Field of Dreams was a huge hit. So I went, okay, got it. And when I initially said, I said, really? Never seen it? And she said, yeah, but isn't that one sad? And I said, are you thinking of The Green Mile? And she says, oh, I think that's the one I'm thinking. I'm like, yeah, we're not watching that because that one is a bummer and I don't want to watch it.
Honestly, The Green Mile is similar to Field of Dreams because it is the fantastical element.
Yeah, except that what's his face dies.
Because they does die at the end, yeah.
Yes, it's yes. Yeah. So and it dies after being wrongly imprisoned and racism and all the rest of it.
Powder? Where would you put Powder and all that?
Oh, that's a Green Mile type. I mean, it's the same type of thing. It's not quite as Powder.
I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, the director for that was a sicko, but it's still a good movie.
Yeah, that's more of a My Girl-ish type because. Yes, I'm pretty sure she has.
Okay.
Hold on, my wife is actually sending me something. Look at that. My wife sent me a picture of the dog. They went for a little stroll. So yeah, I would say Powder is like My Girl in that it's sad, but the character is not, because Green Mile has racism and injustice, like both. It's got both. It's horribly racist and it's terrible the guy's in prison. So that's a twofer. And the fact that his existence is pain. You know what I mean? Like, everything is miserable when it comes to Michael Clark Duncan. I mean, essentially, he's like, yeah, I don't want to be alive in this world anymore. Thanks. You know, don't save me. I'd rather be dead. That's essentially the message of the movie is, oh, when you see the pain of the world, you're probably just going to want to be dead, right? Isn't that essentially what the Green Mile's message is, if you look at it from his perspective?
I don't know about that. I'd have to watch it again. I haven't seen it in a while. I don't want to say it's quite that bad, but I mean, I'm sure you could read that in there.
Well, I think. Hold on, I want to see something.
Remember, these movies are up for interpretation.
Yeah, here it is.
I mean,
here it is.
You're
John, which is Paul's. So Tom Hanks' character. I'll just say the actors. After Tom Hanks realizes that Michael Clark Duncan did not commit the crime, he tries to spring him, and Michael Clark Duncan says that the execution would be an act of mercy as he views the world as a cruel place, as is constant pain from suffering that people inflict upon each other. Yeah. So then he shows him a movie, and then he lets himself be executed. So don't tell me that the message of that movie isn't, you know what? Once I know what the world's like, fuck
but
it.
There's
I'm
also,
done.
but I know, but there's also like a sense of hopelessness in that movie. Because
yes.
It's like, you know, there's other things you could have done. Anyway.
Right. So, whereas Shawshank...
Movies are up for interpretation.
Oh, they absolutely are, but that's what that movie
Shawshank is a great example of that, because they never fully iron out whether he kills his wife or not. Right? I mean, isn't there still some doubt?
Oh, no. There's no doubt. No, because that's why the kid shows up and says that he was in prison with the guy who did it, because the guy was bragging about it and he knew the details.
And the argument is that basically he's just trying to please Tim Robinson's character. Like, I always believed that there was always the slightest possibility that Tim Robbins would kill his wife.
I want to
believe the kid, but I always left the possibility open, because when you work with the narrative of a movie, right? There's what you bring to it, what you want to believe, and there's what the director actually gives you, right? So this is the whole thing with books. When you've got an untrustworthy narrator or something like that, you have to question what you're getting. With Shawshank Redemption, because the director never gives you actual 100%, like, he didn't do it. Like, it never just comes right out. There's always the possibility. It's never 100%.
I guess. I think that is far less of a argument in Shawshank. Well, there's too much the movie gives you to say it is what happened.
Well, no, because the movie is giving you the fact that he is not necessarily a bad person. Honestly, what's kind of fascinating about that movie is this idea that you can have these people who are criminals, right? And yet show that doesn't necessarily make them horrible or evil.
No.
So Andy Dufresne, that's his name. Andy Dufresne may have killed his wife, but that doesn't make every aspect of Andy Dufresne a horrible person, if he did. But there's a high possibility he didn't, and that's even worse that he's there. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of I still leave the door open. You know what? I would love to open that up to the listeners. If you've seen Shawshank Redemption, are you 100% sure that Tim Robbins didn't kill his wife? Or do you feel the movie leaves the shadow of a doubt?
Yeah, I cannot see how anybody would think there'd be a shadow of a doubt. The movie directly presents you with something that would make no sense if it was any doubt to what was going on.
Except
Andy would not get 2 months in the hole and go to war with the warden if he knew he had done it. What's the point? You have to sit there and go, he's not stupid. Why would he try to start all the investigation if there was no person?
Yeah, he's not stupid. But if this kid who was with that guy in another prison is willing to be his witness, right? Andy Dufresne, who is not stupid, would say, that's enough of a doubt that they'd have to let me out of here. Whether it's true or not, you have to kind of look at this from a litigating mindset. It doesn't matter if it's 100%
I guess you're not going to sell me on that, because you can't just have a retrial and it's okay.
You're bringing a lot of your own
I don't think that's the case here, because let's look at
this.
this.
You always do that. We all do that with movies.
I don't disagree. I often do it.
In.
I don't disagree with that. However, Here's the reality of the time and the place. So we're in, the 40s, I think, whatever it was. In that time, convicts do not get this, not like today where there's victims advocacy groups and wrongfully lots of advocacy groups and lots of legal firepower to help you out if you are a criminal. At that time, you get convicted, and it is literally the word of anybody is better than yours, no matter what. Period. A woman wandering off the street who's never heard of you, as long as she hasn't committed a crime, has more truth in what she says than you as a convicted convict do. So let's imagine what happens. I want a retrial. Oh, he's got a witness. Let's give him a retrial. He's reconvicted in 15 minutes because there is no Elmo Blatch. The kid made it up. They will find that out. There is nothing to corroborate it. He goes right back to prison. Why?
Yeah, but the fact that the director doesn't go any further with it because it's a question of hope. It's a question of possibility.
Well, it doesn't matter though because
but it never.
Yeah, you and I look at this completely differently because Andy Dufresne is presented as a cold, calculating person. He's not presented as somebody who's given to flights of fancy. The warden even says, "I'm just surprised you bought into it." Well, of course he did because he knows he didn't kill them. Now it may not. It is possible. I'll grant you that the kid.
You and I look at Andy Dufresne's character a little differently because if anything,
I look at what the movie gives me. That's what I look at.
He is, but the whole escape is a flight of fancy.
No, it's not. He did it. He did it. The whole movie is architected as Andy is actually smarter than everybody, which is very clear. He is smarter than everybody in that prison.
But
he demonstrates it time and again.
Prison? If he's that smart, why is he in prison?
Well, because they didn't buy his story, because they went with the emotional response. Because even when he's convicted, the reason he gets sentenced to double life sentences, they specifically point out, is because the judge says, you are cold and calculating and you didn't show any remorse. Why would he? Why would he show remorse? He didn't kill him. And in the mind of an accountant, somebody who looks at the world in black and white terms, I am innocent. Therefore, why would I demonstrate remorse? In fact, the closest he comes is when the guy says, don't you think it's convenient that you tossed your gun and that's why there were no prints on it that could convict you? And he says, well, since I'm the one on the stand for the crime, I'd say it's inconvenient that there's no prints on the gun because that would have exonerated me. I mean, he doesn't say it like that. He says it in a very monotone way. And the judge says, I look at you and it sends a chill down my spine. Therefore, 2 life sentences, 1 for each of the people you shot. So the
wife
thing,
and the wife
lover,
and the lover,
the golf
right?
pro, yeah. And the fact that he reloaded, that was the real, nail in the coffin, was that it wasn't a crime of passion because he reloaded the revolver for 8 shots when the revolver could only hold 6 rounds. So, having just watched the movie, I don't see any doubt that Andy is innocent. Now, the doubt as to whether the kid is making it up to impress him, sure, you can give me that one and I'll say, yeah, it's possible. But no doubt that Andy is innocent. Without it, there is just nothing to indicate that doubt whatsoever. Because of the way he's presented and the way that he acts in light of everything that's come before, which has always been, I am operating out of cold logic. There was no emotion to him until the kid gets killed, at which point he appears to be suicidal. And that's the only time you see any real emotion out of him in the whole movie is when he's basically okay, the last shot I had at getting out of here the right way is done.
Hold on. There's an angle on this that I didn't even take that is completely fascinating, because you know how I said you're going from the point of view of the untrustworthy narrative, right?
Uh-huh.
Somebody apparently had the same issue that I had, basically saying there is still a shadow of a doubt, and they made a few interesting points. One, that the story is told from Red's perspective. I've totally forgot that.
Wrong.
Red is the narrator.
Wrong. It is not told from Red's perspective until he goes to prison. The beginning of the movie is shown objectively, where we hear nothing of Red. It's the opening, has no narration, nothing of Red until he arrives at the prison. I've heard this argument. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't bear out. What happens in the prison? Again, sure, you could say Red's putting a spin on it, but the fact of what Andy did in the prison exists outside of Red's interpretation. He still went to the warden and demanded that they have a retrial, which makes no sense.
Yeah,
if
and then
Andy,
there's the whole thing that... Yeah, so then Andy does admit that he showed up with a gun.
Yes.
to confront his wife.
Yes.
But then he left and he dropped the He dropped the gun.
He threw the gun into the river. He said he was sobering up and he intended to just scare them. And then when he was driving away,
and basically the whole idea is that it's just a coincidence that someone else then showed up and shot his wife and her lover.
Correct. Yes. And that's how they convict him, is because nobody believes that could be happening.
Right. I mean, honestly, that is pretty. I mean, you have to say that's pretty damning, right?
No, I don't fault the jury. It would. I mean, because this again is the important point, is this opening bit.
Yeah.
Because at no point does he make any type of attempt to deflect anything that he's done. I mean, he says he went there. He says he had a gun. He says he's been drinking because, again, he knows and expects others to understand that his word means something, or I think that's what he thinks. And so he doesn't have a reaction because he has no doubt of his own innocence.
And the argument that people make against the fact that he was convicted says that Andy was a rich white man who was convicted, which in that time doesn't happen that easily.
Well,
which is interesting, but also the original novella specifically left his innocence to be more ambiguous.
Yes.
So,
well, I believe if I remember the novella, that is entirely told from Red's perspective.
And the director and the screenwriter specifically changed it, apparently, because they wanted to make Andy more of the hero.
That's what I'm saying. It is different. Because I've read the novella.
So what you're saying is, because I've read the novella as well, and I think sometimes, the whole thing when you read Jurassic Park and you watch Jurassic Park and you put them together.
Oh yeah, you
put the book and the movie together. Yeah, to some degree, I'm kind of looking at the big picture, because in the story, it's not. I didn't feel like it was ambiguous. I just felt that there was always the possibility. Whereas in the movie, maybe I'm getting the shade of it from the story, but I always felt like the possibility existed. I don't feel like it's 100% he didn't do it.
And in fairness to what your interpretation of it, it's a 2 hour and 20-something minute movie. Maybe 6 minutes is without Red's telling of it. And that's only the opening. But that's what's different from the book.
Do you remember The Illusionist with
Edward Norton? Of course.
Yeah.
They came out within 6 months of The Prestige, the two magician movies that came out for the same time.
Yeah. One of the things that really fascinated me about that movie is that whole movie is told, and I think we talked about this at one point, is told from the point of view of, what's his name? The guy who's basically his counter in the movie.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know who you mean. Hold on, I'll look.
Yeah, the guy who plays the Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti's the guy's name, but I don't know what the character's name is.
No, it doesn't matter. Giamatti. Okay. So Paul Giamatti's character is the narrator of the movie from the very beginning. So as he's telling you the story, the thing you have to remember is that the whole movie is basically Paul Giamatti's point of view. Right. And the illusion that has been pulled off on Paul Giamatti. That's why he doesn't know exactly what's real. The illusion may be the fact that they framed the prince for the murder of his wife. You know what I mean? You realize that once you establish the fact that Paul Giamatti is the narrator and everything you're seeing is his interpretation, you are left with a great deal of doubt. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of thing. It's like, so yes, interpretations.
Yes.
Nevertheless, the original conversation was whether or not your wife would enjoy it.
You know what? And I knew. So number one, I knew she would. I mean, I would have bet $10,000 on it. So we got, but as to your point about you never know for sure, I knew that there was going to be a scene that would tell me, and of course you already know what it is. I'm like, okay, there's one scene where my wife, who responds much more emotionally to movies than I do. If she cries at a certain event, it's done. And that is when Brooks gets out of prison and goes back into the real world. Okay. Because I'm like, I know what's going to happen. My wife doesn't. And you know what? This is what's funny, because I've seen this movie so many times that I forget things about it.
What's even more heavy is when Morgan Freeman's character is like winding up the same way.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen the movie, you get that like creeping tension. You're like, no. Yeah.
The movie does a really good thing that I would, having seen it so many times, knowing what happens, I tend to forget this because the fake out doesn't work on me because I know what's going to happen is when Brooks is in the room and he's packing his stuff up and he's got the chair and the table and he gets up on the chair, I heard my wife breathe in sharply, as in she knew what was coming. But then he takes the knife out and he starts scratching his name. And I heard her breathe out. She has a
moment, and there's a moment of like, oh no, it's okay.
I'm sitting there, I'm keeping my face straight because I don't want to give anything away. And then he does the thing and she was bawling. And I'm like, yep, sure thing. I knew it. I said, like, because once the movie has you there, the movie has you. Right? And here's something else. Before we watched the movie, I said, I think this is probably my favorite Morgan Freeman movie. Before we watched it, I think this is my favorite one that he's been in terms of, just purely the whole way through. And she said, oh, I really like Lean On Me. And I said, yeah, Lean On Me is good, but let's see if you feel the same way when this is done. Sure enough, this is better. And, and then at the end, yes, he does the thing where he's packing it up. And then I think, and I'm pretty sure I didn't ask her about this, but I will, because I'm 99% sure. After that's done, and he gets on the bus, I think she thought the movie was going to end there. That you didn't see the reunion of the two of them, and at that point she was smiling because I slyly I scratch my face and I look at it like I'm trying to gauge because there is an enjoyment for me when I know how a movie is working for someone to actually see their reaction.
If you get it right.
If you get it right. Yeah. If you get it wrong, it's fucking horrible silence. But when you get it right, it's fantastic.
Listen, I get this with my kids where I watch a movie with them and I know the movie and I'm like, okay. It's like,
you delight in their delight.
This. And you delight in their delight, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, same thing. So I'm like, so I looked over and she was smiling when it was where he says, I hope the Pacific Ocean is as blue as in my dreams. And he says, I hope. And I think she thought there it was just going to fade to black. So then I'm like, oh, okay. She doesn't know that she's going to see these two men hug because I love a fucking movie. I mean, the movie is fantastic. Yes, no. I specifically remember the end of this because I think it is the most because there is a lot of, for anybody who hasn't seen this, if you haven't, sorry, I'm spoiling this stuff for you because this is a movie I actually don't like spoiling for people. I'll be honest, because the movie has a lot of pain in it. There is a lot of sad and miserable moments. They're kind of front loaded. He gets raped repeatedly, Brooks' death, the kid getting shot. She cried when the kid got shot. So, and she hated the warden, which she's supposed to. That's the point of the movie. The movie's working.
Which you're supposed to, yeah.
Yes. She's like, I fucking hate this guy. I'm like, you're supposed to hate him. He's not going to turn out to be Clark Kent at the end. Trust me. It's not going that way.
Yeah.
So the movie, and I mean, she was crying at multiple points. She was very angry at the warden and Clancy Brown at multiple points. And so I'm like, if the movie just faded at the thing, that would be good, but it wouldn't be. Seeing that, I think, is something the audience requires in this case. Because this is a long movie by movies, for most people's movie standards. Anything over 2 hours tends to be long. And it's not a very happy movie for a good chunk of time. It's spread out, but there are multiple points where the movie punches you in the balls over and over and over. As in, because that's just how the movie's laid out. So when they hugged, I looked over and she's... I mean, just coated in tears, and I'm like, yes.
And they don't zoom in. Either. I think
it's zoomed out. No, he sees him scraping the boat. He looks over, and then it's way out.
It's high shot.
Out. Yeah. And at the very end, he drops the suitcase, and they hug, and that's when the movie ends.
And I like that because the whole idea of that shot, I think, is to show that there's everything else in the movie is enclosed. Everything is a cell. Everything is a wall.
Right. Claustrophobic.
Whereas that last shot is open, fully open, right? Like almost like hilariously open. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yep. There's nothing there.
Yeah. So I look over at her and she's sobbing and she goes, "Yeah, the movie was okay." I'm like, yes, I knew it. I love when I'm right about stuff. Especially something like this, because I'm like, if she likes this movie, she'll love this movie. She loved this movie. So I'm like, okay.
Ask her if she thinks Tim Robbins is 100%.
Oh, sure, I'll ask her.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Honestly, your wife's got a good heart. She'll probably think he is.
Well,
I'm just
she
a
probably
naysaying,
no. I
and
disagree.
everything,
I
so.
actually think she's going to be more. She'll be more in your camp because I've seen the movie a lot of times, right? And I at this point I'm kind of analyzing things about it, which is why that very opening is so important to me in terms of what the guilt is. I guarantee she won't consider how concrete, in my opinion, that opening is. She will probably say, well, it's possible, but I don't think so. I don't think she'll be 100% certain like I am. I'm looking at it as that opening is the thing that objectively the movie is telling us something. And,
I hate being 100% right about anything.
Well, look, somebody will.
No. I get it.
Frank Darabont a year from now could come out and say, well, you know what? I did want to leave a seed. That's why we never actually showed Blatch killing them. Just so that you could maybe interpret it that way. At which point, guess what? I'm wrong. But what the movie presents to us, and my read of it, is there is no doubt.
Yes, but here's the important thing. It doesn't matter.
I was just about to say, and more importantly, it really doesn't matter in terms of what the movie is
whether
about.
Tim Robbins is guilty or not, it doesn't really matter because the movie is basically about a guy who doesn't want to be where he is and what he endures to find a way out.
Right. In the end, the guilt doesn't actually matter. Right.
Yeah.
So, so you're right and I'm right. Whatever.
Here's to change.
Sure, that was my only
directions on you
because it was great.
No, change the directions on you. So we're watching. I'm watching the David Tennant era of Doctor Who with my kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just finished the first season with Rose Tyler. Rose Tyler's gone, and we met Donna Noble briefly in the whole wedding episode, which I still love. Fucking Donna Noble, my favorite companion. But especially when he goes to leave and she says to him, find someone to travel with. You shouldn't be alone. But I watched the first episode with my kids of the Martha Jones era, right? And it was funny because talking about like watching a movie you've seen before. I've seen that first episode a bunch of times, right? But I was watching it this time and it struck me how I think this is actually your fault. So before I explain the reaction, no, it's your fault because you were reading Dracula. Was it Unbound?
Oh, Dracula
right?
Unbound, yes.
Yeah. So Joe and I were playing Sniper Elite the other night, and Joe's talking to me about Dracula Unbound, and we're talking about the fact that Dracula in this book, who's some kind of alien, he seduces women, right? But he doesn't want sex from them. And there is apparently a scene in the book where the woman opens her legs up to him, and he's like, "No, I don't want that. I want your neck. I want to drink your blood. That's what I want." You and I were going back and forth about why would he do such a thing, right? And you were like, well, you said, well, he probably does it because it's some sort of predatory response to get to what he wants, which is them giving them his neck, right? No muss, no fuss. And I was thinking about that idea of Dracula being an alien and basically like hating humans, but seducing the female of the species because that's what gives him what he wants, right? And then I sat down and watched the first episode of basically like the Martha Jones season of Doctor Who. And it struck me how fucking manipulative the Doctor is to Martha Jones. That basically he kind of picks her. And I like the beginning of the episode throws you off because he does that time travel thing. So he sees her in the beginning of the episode, so you think somehow he's picked her. But otherwise, what essentially happens is he's in the hospital. He knew that something was going to happen in the hospital because he was getting weird readings off of it. And he's kind of in the hospital. And he happens to see Martha Jones, and he takes to her precociousness, right? But then after that, there is something like kind of like overly seductive. Like the Doctor knows how he comes off to human women, especially in this era with what's the guy's name who did all the Tennant stuff?
Davies.
No.
Robert T. Davies. Russell T. Davies. That's it. Russell.
Yeah. So the way that Davies writes him, he knows that he has this attractive quality, and he's just lost Rose Tyler, who he's very close to, and so he's kind of looking for someone else to I don't know, give him the same vibe that Rose Tyler. Because what's very fascinating about the Martha Jones season is the whole season is the Doctor basically remembering how great Rose Tyler was. Right? Because already we're 3 episodes in now because we've watched 3 episodes with Martha Jones, and already he's mentioned Rose Tyler like 3 or 4 times. Well, Rose would know, like stuff like that, which really embitters Martha Jones because she's being seduced by the Doctor. But as he's seducing her, he's also like being like, okay, one trip, or don't get any fancy ideas, or like they go and they sleep they sleep in a bed together, and she's like, oh, the 2 of us are in a bed together, and he's like, yeah, what of it? And then he starts talking about Rose Tyler, which drives her up a wall. So it's funny because it really made me think about the alienness of Doctor Who. The other day, my kids asked me what alien meant. And I was trying to explain to them what something truly alien was. And they love Doctor Who, so we were using him as an example. And I said this whole thing about how you think you understand how the Doctor thinks because he looks human. I was like, but what if inside he was just a whole bunch of jellyfish? And they were like, what do you mean? The other day we were in an aquarium, we saw a bunch of jellyfish, and my kids were basically trying to figure out, how the hell do jellyfish function? There's no brains, right? Like, they poop and eat from the same hole. Like, what the hell? Like, jellyfish are truly alien in that you can't kind of make heads or tails of them because their head and their tail is the same thing. And I was kind of like, yeah, what if the Doctor, what if the Time Lord was just a giant jellyfish inside, right? Like, trying to make them understand the alienness of it. And then I started thinking about the alienness of it. And that, coupled with your whole commentary about Alien Dracula and his seduction of humans, I was actually thinking there about how, I was like, the Doctor has no interest in copulating with a human woman, right? To my understanding, he never has. But he loves to flirt with them. He loves to, like, bring them in. He loves to be wanted, right? But the only time, like, Rose Tyler doesn't get the Doctor. She gets the human Time Lord hybrid clone, right? That's the gift that he gives her, which is that she gets to end up with a version of him that can be with her. And it really made me start thinking about this idea of the Doctor as truly alien, and how even we as viewers are kind of led astray by this idea that he is human. Whereas his behavior is truly alien. Like he is kind of like, he does seduce Martha Jones into this role because he wants someone to travel with. Whereas he never has an interest in kind of going any further, right? And it really made me start to think of the Doctor keeping humans almost like pets. Because here's the thing, right? Your dog is Rose Tyler, right?
Sure.
You travel with your dog through time and space, and you get to a point where you think you and your dog are going to get killed by the Daleks. But you have the ability to send your dog away someplace safe, right? What do?
Oh, send her away to someplace safe.
Send her away, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then your dog gets trapped in an alternate universe, and you're left on your own, right? You're lonely. Sure, you'll travel for a while by yourself. But what do you eventually do?
Well, I mean,
and you will.
You have to go check.
You get a new dog.
Oh, get a new dog. Yeah, okay. Yes.
Right? You get a new dog. So now you got a new dog, right? And then eventually you hold on to that dog until that dog's like, you know what? This shit's dangerous, and fucks off. The Doctor, I think to some degree, is always collecting pets. Now, he loves them, right? Don't be wrong. I don't question his love. Like, he does love Rose Tyler. But the Doctor himself would never be with Rose Tyler. He can't be. She's just human. He is the Time Lord. And, and it's the same with, like, you love your dog, but your dog is your dog. You'll do anything for your dog, but your dog is your dog. Like, so I kind of put the Doctor in that mindset, and it made the show a lot, not creepier, but like a lot more science fiction-y. Like nobody realizes that they're dealing with this creature that he may act kooky and funny and human, but to some degree he does that because it disarms everybody. There's a really great episode in Tenet that's in the Martha Jones season, and I'm sure you remember it. Remember the one where he basically has his memory wiped so that he can assume just being human?
Oh, yeah, yes.
And Martha Jones is working as a maid, and they're basically hiding out from these 4 creatures that eat, I think they eat time or something like that. And at the end of the episode, like Martha Jones has the watch or something like that contains the Doctor's persona. But as long as it's closed, that whole persona is cut off. He's just a facsimile of a human being. And, he gets kind of involved with this woman, and he seems kind of happy. But then when the shit hits the fan, he opens the watch. Now, he opens the watch, but he does this whole fake out where he lets them think that he's this clumsy human oaf, which is very sort of Clark Kent Superman, right? Because the whole thing is that Superman is Superman, but Clark Kent, this is the whole Tarantino's thing, where Clark Kent is Superman's statement on humanity, right? It's how he perceives the human race. Right. And to some degree, it goes back to the Doctor, the way the Doctor perceives humans. He plays this oaf to basically trick these things, and then once he blows their ship up, they get the anger of the Time Lord, which is still one of my favorite scenes from all of Doctor Who. And all the shit that he does to them, where he traps one of them in a star, and the sister that he traps in, and he goes, he trapped her in a mirror, every mirror. And it's like, it shows you that the awesome power and like vengeance of a Time Lord. And it made me realize that, yeah, you know what? I think that's more the real Doctor. I think that he plays at being all kooky and fun, but I think it's more the oncoming storm is closer to what he really is. And I think that's why like the Master scares the hell out of him, because the Master is a version of the Doctor who has no happy kooky side. The Master doesn't keep pets. The Master just wants to fuck everything up. And I think the Doctor kind of sees that in himself, because the later season of Tenet is basically where Tenet starts to get dark. Remember where he starts to change time, and he's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. He's like, nothing can stop me. And then he was like, oh shit. He goes, have I gone too far? Right? And it's like the Master is kind of that version of him that takes the next step and goes, no, I haven't gone far enough. Whereas at that point, Tenet gets killed off, and this new, more kooky version of the Doctor comes up, which is almost like a reflex to be like, okay, you're gonna regenerate. But you got to regenerate as something even more kooky because you're getting dark. But I just love this idea of this perception of the character as being far more alien than I ever kind of conceived of him before. And it's like this interesting reinterpretation, because we're gonna finish this Tenet season, but Tenet has now become something far more like, I want to say like alien and exotic than he ever was before, and the way he's manipulating and the way he's kind of moving people, and he drops these lines. I'm sure you remember these lines where he's like, he can smell what year it is, he can feel the motion of the planets. It's like there's always and there's always this hinting at the fact that there's far more going on with him than you realize. You know what I mean? So it has become very interesting for me on a rewatch, the way that he can be so different. Like, watch one episode of Doctor Who, any episode of Doctor Who, with this mindset. That the humans are his pets, that he could never really be with them, but he does love them, but he looks down upon them because they are a subspecies, right? And, like, it just gets very... like, all they would really have to do is if the Doctor didn't look human. Think how different that show would be if he actually looked alien. Even if he just looked like a Klingon, right? Because like the Vulcans are like, Star Trek is a great example of this, because the Vulcans just have pointy ears, and yet you immediately look at them and you're like, other, you're not human, you're a space elf, right? I mean, the Klingons with their big foreheads, not the early Discovery version, which look very weird. But like the late, like was it season 2 of Strange New Worlds? I think they're bringing out the new Klingons, or the
Yeah, they look more like they used to.
They look more like Worf, right? Worf, I think Worf is the high watermark for Klingons for me.
Yeah, he looked the best. Yeah,
I do. I think he looks the best, right? But yeah. So it's just it's funny how people can't wrap their head around this idea that if it looks human, it must be human, and it's like, nah, you know what? What if it looks human and it's really not? You know, like Species flirted with this idea. The problem is that Species kind of Species turns into a nudie horror fest, but like it flirts with that idea that she's not human. She looks human and she looks sexy, but really it's just how it brings you in, so it can I'd say regenerate, but reproduce, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if the Doctor showed up and was always like, some big alien looking motherfucker, Rose Tyler's not going to be wanting to shag the Doctor when he's got like a giant mosquito head or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe she would. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. Hey, you never know. That? People are into different shit.
Yeah. Listen. So anyway, I just it was just it's you watch Shawshank Redemption again and we're watching it kind of for the delight of your wife, and like I'm watching Doctor Who for the delight of my kids, but like I said, it's the Dracula Unbound thing just got me thinking, and now it's like I'm looking at it all from this like new perspective, and like Matt Smith. I watched a couple scenes of Matt Smith kind of like applying this new mindset. I'm like, oh yeah, he's so much creepier because like with Amy Pond, like he's known her since she was a little girl. Right? So in his mind, she's always really that little girl. Yeah, she's a puppy.
She's just a puppy.
She's an adorable little puppy. And it's that kind of thing where it's like, we don't want to think of ourselves as pets, right? But for an intellect that has lived for near 1,000 years, who travels through space and time, who sees like, yeah, you're all a bunch of adorable little puppies. Like, it's so cute. I love you guys. You guys make life better. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, but it's not in like in an evil way though. Like, you don't love your dog in an evil way. You love your dog.
No, yeah, of course.
Dog's great. Right? So like that idea of like, yeah, the Doctor loves humans. They're great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
my
pets,
dog doesn't have self-awareness,
them.
which keeps her from resenting the fact that she's treated as a pet.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he looks human is what keeps the resentment away, right?
Yep.
But essentially,
yeah, if he was a big snot monster, you wouldn't be as happy about it.
He owns Earth. Earth is his. Like, that was the Matt Smith episode, the first episode of Matt Smith, where those aliens come and all shit, and he basically calls him back to the roof, and he basically says, is Earth guilty of any crime with the Atraxi? And he says, is Earth defended? And then they go back through the history of all the Time Lords, and eventually it goes out of the Doctors, and it gets back to his regeneration. And he says, yeah, you better run. And it's like, yeah, Earth is your playground. Like, you've decided that humans are yours, and Earth is yours.
This is my zoo, damn it.
Yeah, this is... And I love them, and I take care of them, but this is mine. The Master can't fuck around with this. Humans are mine. You guys can have the Daleks and the Atraxi and whatever else you want, but these are mine.
Doctor Who, more like Dr. Zookeeper.
Dr. Zookeeper. That's awful. That's so awful.
Show title.
So anyway, that was my weird thought experiment addition to all this.
Well, it's funny that you reminded me of this. For Dracula Unbound, there's a piece of irony, which is I think I was wrong about the alien thing. I think the way they were describing alien didn't mean literally off planet, but I could be wrong. I'm not done with it yet. Still, funny that it spurred this thought experiment. I did, however, discover that there's another book in this monster series. Yes.
Is there another one?
I was looking at something about it because I was checking something on it. And it said Monster Trilogy, and I went, Trilogy? I know about 2 of these. The other one is
Did
called
you write?
Moreau's Other Island, which you know
No
I'm gonna
way.
read next. Yes. I gotta read that
man,
next.
hold on. I need to know what that one's about. Hold on.
I am pulling it up right now because I wanted to tell you.
Moreau's
Moreau's
Other
Other Island. And you have to use Aldous because I think there's other stuff about Moreau's Other Island.
Oh,
Here.
yeah. Aldous. Yeah, there it is.
There
Okay,
it
well,
is.
let's see.
Yeah.
Welcome to Dr. Moreau's Other Island, place of untold horrors, home of the Beastmen. He stands very tall, long prosthetic limbs glistening in the harsh sun, withered body swaying, carbine and whip clasped in artificial hands. Man-beasts cower on the sand as he brandished his gun in the air. He is Dr. Moreau, ruler of the fabulous, grotesque island, where humans are as brutes and brutes as humans, where the future of the entire human race is being reprogrammed. The place of untold horrors, the place of new man.
And this one, according to this, is actually on another planet. Because here's Publisher's Blurb, which is a great way to describe a summary. In the early months of war in 1996, the space capsule Leda is sabotaged on a return trip from the moon, killing 1 person on impact and leaving 3 to drift in a life raft. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It is on Earth, in the middle of the Pacific. Okay, one of these people survives to see the cliffs of an island dominated by a huge letter M. So it's Asteroid M on Earth. Oh, this gets better. The appearance of the island's inhabitants come as a considerable shock to Roberts. Though human, they are disfigured by bizarre forms of bestiality. I don't know if I'd use the term that way. So that it is almost impossible to say whether they are human or animal, which is what you said. The sinister genius responsible is Mortimer Dart. That's a rather pedestrian name. A thalidomide victim. What the hell's what's thalidomide? Thalidomide? What is that?
Is that the drug they're taking in the book?
Maybe. No, this is an oral medication used to treat a number of cancers. Graft versus host of these and many skin disorders. Oh, so maybe he's disfigured. That would make sense. Yeah, interesting. No, this is a real thing. Thalidomide is a real drug.
But is the time traveler in this one as well? I wonder.
No, it's a different person's name unless he comes into it. But no, the survivor's name is Calvert Mady Roberts. So no, that is not Joe Bodenland, who's the guy from the other ones. Yeah.
Bodeland. Yeah. In my brain, it's always Bodeland.
Oh, a victim whose fascination for human deformity. Okay, so that's what he's going to be. Has led to a series of experiments duplicating those of the legendary Dr. Moreau. That, at least, is how they began. Ellipses. So, yeah. Dart is a cyborg thalidomide victim. Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
It is. Okay, so it is. There are no characters from the Baudelaire is not in this. It is disconnected in that respect, but it is written in the same vibe as him basically messing with classic sort of monster stories.
Yeah, okay. I'm in.
I wonder if this one will be even more fucking whack shit.
Possibly. You
know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because now in Dracula Unbound, now we're at the point where I've found out that the vampires existed with dinosaurs and were sucking their blood because humans weren't around quite yet. So they were caging dinosaurs and feeding on them. This fucking this guy
that's a lot of blood.
It's man, is it? Anyway, I'll review it in full when I'm done. But just based on these 2, I gotta read this other one because say what you want, it's not boring and it's not routine. This is whacked out shit, and I'm digging it. So. I'm in.
Oh my god, is this a graphic novel as well? Did they do a graphic novel?
Please tell me that they did one. I mean, his stuff is, I'll tell you, this is stuff that is made to be adapted and kind of trimmed and edited, but made to be adapted. Especially the Frankenstein Unbound is the most, as weird as this is going to say, straightforward and routine, and probably the one that I would. For the movie, it's great because they change things and they they kind of recontextualize it. As a graphic novel, if you transform the story, I could see it. But if you're just going to do a straight adaptation, it'd be pretty boring. Unless the whole reason to do it was to illustrate that last quarter. And maybe somebody would do it for that. So that they do all the normal stuff and then you would just have a gore fest like what they did in Nameless, where there's just splatter stuff everywhere. And that would be the reason to do it.
Oh,
Dracula Unbound would be a great adaptation. Is it bad?
That comic, when he gets to the satellite and the fucking everything just goes nuts.
Oh, and Nameless, yes. That's the reason to do. That's the reason.
The visuals in that book will stay with me.
Honestly, if Bernie Wrightson was still alive, he would be the person. I would want to see him adapt this book. Adapt Frankenstein Bound. Now, Dracula Unbound, I think anybody could take that. And it could, sure, give it to Grant Morrison and Chris Burnham and let them go crazy with this thing, because I don't think Grant Morrison would even do it now that I say it, because there's nothing, I don't know how much more you add to that. It's so insane.
No, you have to give it to someone like...
That's a straighter adaptation. It's kind of a straightforward. But Burnham, Frank Quitely could do it. Simon Bisley would be unbelievable to do Dracula Unbound. His Dracula would be... Oh, man, because there's at least 3 or 4 different types of vampires. So he could he could play around.
Yeah, Bisley. The problem with Bisley is Bisley and Sam Keith have this. So both of them are great artists, but they are greater when they are somewhat held back.
Well, they'd have to adapt the material, but
yeah, I think when Bisley gets out of control, suddenly you're wondering where the character ends and the scenery begins.
Well,
you know what I mean?
But that would actually...
There's some Lobo work he did where Lobo starts to almost become part of the environment.
Yes, but I think that would, for Dracula Unbound, because of the way some of it's done, I don't think that'd be a problem. I think he would have enough... I think for Bisley, there's enough visual variety in the actual material as written that he would be able to illustrate wild things without having to invent that wild variety. The vampires in the prehistoric era for him would be perfect, because there would just be dinosaurs and bushes and wild pterodactyls, and then vampires that are overly muscle bound yet wearing S&M gear with bulging eyes. And they'd be everywhere.
Bisley's already got some great Dracula too.
Well, I think he would be a good fit for that. Now, Moreau I haven't read yet, so we'll get to that when I get to that. But Bisley adaptation would be a masterstroke for that. So, yeah. But I'm not done with it yet, so I can't review it in full. I have not.
Is Bisley still alive?
Oh yeah, no, he's alive. He's not that old.
Okay.
Yeah, he's still alive. Simon Bisley.
No, I always feel like he's a lot older than
well, us. He's not young. He is. Hold on, I'll tell you. Does it say? No, it doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't look that old in the picture of him from 2022. He looks our age. Possibly, let's put it this way. I don't think he's more than a decade older than us.
Okay, I was going to say, he's not younger than us.
No, I'm not younger, but not drastically older, I don't think.
Simon Bisley is 61, so there's plenty of hope.
Wow, he looks good. He looks good for 61, let me tell you.
Kevin Eastman is 60 as well.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen Kevin Eastman, so I can't speak for that. But Simon Bisley looks pretty fucking good. So, for 61, that's a good 61. I hope I look that good at 61. You don't have any other reviews for tonight, right? Anything else?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
So I finished RoboCop Prime Directives, right?
Oh, you know what? I've been getting people onto RoboCop Prime Directives.
Have you? Oh, that's great.
I've been spreading the word, because a lot of people, I tell them that there was a TV show, like the Canadian Sci-Fi, basically, TV, and people are like, really? And I've just been spreading the seed.
Good. That's good. So the last show we did, I had reviewed the first 2 parts, which were, oh man, what were they? Hold on. I want to make sure I get the names right. Sorry. Prime, because I keep mixing the names up, but it's important so that, you wouldn't watch it out of order. It would be labeled so you would know, but I want to make sure I get this correct. Of course, I put Prime Directives in, and what comes up? Star Trek for pages and pages and pages. I know. Yes, that's the Prime Directive. Here we go. I know. It was my stupidity for doing that. I should have done it. Okay, so the first 2 parts are Dark Justice and Meltdown. So when I reviewed those, the thing that I liked about those 2, in particular the first one, was that it got into the backstory of RoboCop, that they expanded on his backstory. They showed us more of him as Alex Murphy and kind of his approach to things. And that also set up John Cable, who became RoboCable. So that was the driving impetus of the first 2 parts. So at the end of Meltdown was where RoboCop and RoboCable were basically being hunted by OCP's Robo Hunters. A lot of robos. Saying robo a lot, sorry. that cornered them and gravely wounded RoboCop before RoboCable came to his rescue. And it ended with the two of them kind of walking off where RoboCop was being held up mostly by RoboCable, and that was where that part ended. So then we come to... Oh, I just closed the page. Prime directives. Here we go. Sorry. Then we come to Resurrection. So Resurrection is part 3, and then the final part is called Crash and Burn. So Resurrection, because this is what I was interested in. When I ended Melton, I went, okay, what will they do with these two now? Because RoboCable had regained his memory because he was a tool of OCP, but he regained his kind of, much like RoboCop, he knows who he is. He turned against OCP, and he was helping RoboCop again. So I went, all right. Now, even though the show presents RoboCop as older and kind of obsolete in terms of public awareness and public, of course, the public at this point hates him because he's been blamed for what RoboCable was being. Well, RoboCable was programmed to do all these things, and people just assumed it was RoboCop because he looks pretty much the same. So he was a public enemy. Because RoboCable is a kind of secret weapon of OCP, whereas RoboCop is a public one that everybody's known about for a while. So even though he was shown to be, even before the public enemy thing, he was shown to be obsolete and, existential and having kind of a very, very late midlife crisis type of thing, he still seems to be, in terms of raw power and technology and imperviousness, pretty high up there. The Robo-Hunters, when they come for him, most of them are just wielding essentially MP5s, which the only reason they damage him, and literally sledgehammers, is because they're doing it in overwhelming force. So if one or two of them shoots them, the bullets just bounce off. When they're concentrating, much like bulletproof glass, if you take a bunch of guns and target the same place on bulletproof glass, you are going to get through because eventually it can't take it forever. It's not like the movies often present it where you can unload 1,000 rounds and there's just a crack. You focus your fire, you will get through bulletproof glass unless it's, 10-inch thick steel. So RoboCop is eventually being worn down by the overwhelming amount of firepower being thrown at him. But he himself is still very, very tough. And his gun goes right through their armor as if they're wearing t-shirts. He's just chewing them down with his super handgun. So RoboCable, of course, has 2 handguns and is a newer model with better plating, so he can take even more. Only one of the Robo-Hunters, the leader, has what appears to be a gun that is roughly like the one that Boddicker's group got in the movie. You remember those giant cannons that they were wielding? Yeah. He has an equivalent, if not the same one, as that, which, on the one hand, I sat there and went, why wouldn't OCP have more of those in case RoboCop flipped out? But I guess in 10 years, if RoboCop has never turned on them, they probably got a little bit lazy about it and didn't keep their stock up because, hey, whatever, he's barely held together by spare parts anyway, even though they apparently have a second suit ready to go for RoboCable, but we won't get into the logic of that. So I guess it sort of makes sense they wouldn't have a ton of these guns. They would figure one is enough.
I would love it if they got into the idea that RoboCable is made more cheaply, so he breaks down more easily than RoboCop.
There is
RoboCop is the prototype.
I thought that's what was going to be the case, but there is no evidence that he is any less tough. In fact, if anything, he's tougher from what we see. And that makes sense because he's got the actual real parts that are apparently sealed in a vault somewhere, and RoboCop's being held together by Scotch tape and Bazooka Joe bubblegum, which is probably tougher than his armor anyway. So they show up, they only have the one gun, and I do like, because this is my consistent theme, and this held all the way to the end. Every bad decision has a good decision and vice versa. So as weird as it is that they didn't have more than one super gun for RoboCop, although you could maybe figure out a reasoning for that, I do like the fact that the guy trying to wield that giant gun, he is having a very hard time with it. He can barely carry it, because those guns are immense. In the movie, too, I mean, they kind of wield them in an unrealistic way for a weapon of that magnitude, right? I mean, those guys weren't built like Jesse the Body, and he was carrying a cannon that's normally bolted to a helicopter. It makes sense when you're a mountain of a person. It doesn't make so much sense when you're built like Clarence Boddicker, who's holding one of those guns.
Yeah, but it's not like Ventura could, run. Remember him trying to move with that gun?
No. I agree, but in other words, that firepower
it was a slow haul.
It was. But the logic of it didn't fail you. You went, okay, somebody that big could wield that big a gun. Yes, he's not going to be running a marathon, but it doesn't look like it's unwieldy.
But he's huge. He can have a huge gun. Yeah.
Right. In the movie, when they're using those guns at times, like one of them shoots them holding it at his hip. Now, I have to imagine the recoil would have shot the gun backwards 20 fucking feet out of his hand when he fired that thing.
Unless it's some kind of like laser or
Sure.
caseless,
I'm sure it is. But what I'm saying is it looks a little silly is all I'm getting at. In the show, they make it very evident that it's hard for this guy to use this gun, which I appreciate. So when he's missing, it doesn't seem like stormtroopers where there's 80 of them firing at one thing and not a single person can hit shit within a mile of what they're aiming at.
No, it's okay, hold on. I have a lot more respect for stormtroopers now because they did something in the third season of The Mandalorian that they'd never done before in the other episodes. You should find it if you can. There's a point in the show where they give you a view through the Mandalorian's eyes of what he sees through that visor.
Yeah, limited perception. Right?
And I was like, holy shit, dude. How can you see anything? I thought they had a whole fucking Iron Man fucking display in there.
Well, Boba Fett did. Boba Fett did. That's why he had 360 on his helmet. So I don't know why. I don't know. Boba Fett did. Although that makes it even stupider that he got hit from behind by Han. So I know people are going to say that.
So if the stormtroopers don't have that kind of heads-up display, yeah, dude, it's hard to see out of a fucking helmet. Like, I was saying to my wife, is like, you really want to take out stormtroopers, you just got to shoot the eyes out with paintballs.
I don't disagree.
Can't see where the fuck they're going.
But it's seldom just one firing at people. If you have a bunch of them firing, somebody even by accident should hit something.
Someone should hit something,
yes. Yeah. But, like I said, in
firing
the show,
a massive cannon, yes.
Yeah, like him missing doesn't bother me.
Aren't they shooting the fucking like 50 cal Barretts or something like that?
I think that's actually what it is with some stuff strapped onto it. And they're firing explosive rounds. So they're firing big shit. But anyway, so they're firing. So that's the only big gun of those we see.
Okay. That is actually what they're firing.
It's a Barrett.
So it's a Barrett 50 cal, which they put like a weird night vision scope on to make it look futuristic.
They put a couple of pieces of plastic to make it look sleek.
But those guns are huge. And if you want to know what the actual recoil on those looks like, there's plenty of videos of people knocking themselves unconscious.
Yes.
So no, it doesn't surprise me that these guys are having a hard time with them.
Well, that's why I like that. I actually think that's clever. Is this guy is acting all tough, but he's wielding a gun that's bigger than this gun he's wielding is bigger than he is. It's far taller. So, end of the series, they've managed to at least defer enough of them off or kill enough of them that they've retreated. And like I said, RoboCop kind of stumble off. I'm like, all right, where is this going? Because the two of them, if RoboCop gets repaired and he and RoboCable go up against OCP, they should get pretty far with little resistance. Because, again, even in this world, even 10 years on, they don't seem to have a good solution to stop him. And now there's another one of him. So I'm like, are they going to somehow come up with a super weapon, or are they going to split these guys up? What are they going to do here? Because I really wasn't sure. So then in Resurrection, they split them up. What happens is RoboCop is starting to fail. Like his systems are starting to shut down. So RoboCable brings him to a safe area, puts him down, and says, I'm going to go fight them off. Stay here and conserve your energy so you don't flatline. And RoboCop is basically at like 13%. So RoboCable wanders off and he starts taking on the rest of the hunters. And they eventually do the same thing to him as RoboCop, where they get him to a point where he is critically damaged and he shuts down and collapses. And so when that happens, RoboCop, as that's been going on, there's this group of, because they're in old Detroit now, so they're in Crime City or, Slum City, whatever. A group of stealth people who we've seen through the episode, they're almost like they're terrorists against OCP or something. They grab RoboCop and steal him with, I think, the intent to reprogram him. But then the leader realizes that RoboCop, because if you remember, there was a little girl that RoboCop was protecting I don't know if you remember this from my summary, but there's a little girl he was protecting. And that's where RoboCable was kind of standing in front of him as he was taking all the fire for the little girl. The little girl's mother is the leader of the stealth terrorist group. So once she realizes that RoboCop helped her, she says, "No, we'll just put him back together. He helped my daughter. He's not evil like the news is saying or whatever. Let's build him back up and let's at least talk to him first and see what's going on." So they start repairing him. RoboCable is grabbed by some guy who also has a stealth suit and can shoot lightning from his wrist. with a device, not because he's not Raiden. He can shoot, but I'm like, what the hell's going on? Because you just see a person in a stealth suit shooting lightning, and I'm like, what is this?
You've got people coming out of the woodwork now.
Yes, because this is a person I didn't know who this was at first, and so this person grabs RoboCable, brings him back to his high-tech lab, and is revealed to be an insane, hyper-religious, anti-human bioengineer who builds cable.
It's the worst combination.
Yeah, really bad. Because he basically says, I want to break into OCP and install a techno-organic virus that will destroy all humanity. I call it Legion. Very subtle. And so, because his motives are weird. I don't really understand them because he himself is killed by his own virus. So I guess maybe he just hates all humanity. I really don't get it. Either it was explained badly or I missed it about what his motivation is. It really doesn't matter because we know he's not going to win. So who cares? So he builds RoboCable, he repairs RoboCable, but he also basically wipes most of his human memory and installs a pain switch so that he can control him. So I'm like, got it. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to make it RoboCable versus RoboCop again by making him a tool of this lunatic. And the lunatic just so happens to be the ex-husband of the leader of the stealth terrorists who rebuilt RoboCop. He was an abusive husband, also a lunatic, and you find out that he, and this is not, again, I don't really know how this even works, but he and this woman had a child that has some kind of biotechnical DNA in her system and also an Ethernet jack in her belly button. I'm not kidding.
What?
That is... I'm not kidding. That is somehow the... I mean, they show it, and it is nothing short of hilarious.
Hold on. Say it again. Just say it again. And just let the ridiculousness of it roll through your mouth.
She has a what? A young girl who has technical DNA and an Ethernet jack in her belly button. Which, I'm not kidding when I say this with a straight face. It was unclear if it had been there all the time and the mother just never noticed it. I'm not kidding. I could not tell.
Well, listen. I'll be honest with you. If it didn't show up right away, like if it was one of the things where it was like something that naturally happened, right? I honestly can't tell you the last time I looked at my son's belly button.
Okay, well,
yeah, but if you're bringing your child for regular annual checkups like a responsible parent does, at some point somebody, or myself, would be like, dude, what is that?
However,
in
the logic of the show, they're living in old Detroit, which is not a fun place. There may not be doctors. And they were in an abusive relationship until pretty recently. So maybe he covered it up or just beat her every time she asked about the child. So it's not the way the child isn't my problem. It's the fact that there's a part where he pulls her shirt up partially and you see what is literally a glued on Ethernet jack on her belly button. And I'm sorry, but that's not going to be anything other than funny.
So do they plug her in?
Well,
like, what is her? What
they
what
never
are her
they
Wi-Fi
never
speeds?
show when he does that. Then he says she's the key, and then something. So I assume he did plug her in. Or
she's the USB key.
Well, that's what they really should have done was a USB on the back of her neck. That would go Ghost in the Shell if you're going to do it. But anyway, so Resurrection. Before we get to Crash and Burn, which is where the Ethernet jack of the belly button is revealed. Maybe that should be the show title: Belly Button Ethernet Jack. Oh boy, between that and Dr. Zookeeper. I'll mull that one.
No, anyway, you know what? Hold on. You know why that shouldn't be the title? Because you don't want to give that away.
Oh, yeah.
You really want people to experience that in real time.
Yeah, I guess you do. Yes. You're welcome, everyone. So in Resurrection, that is primarily about the two RoboCops being rebuilt. That's really what it's focused on. And in the background, and this is the part of the show that is really just, it never really works, is the political intrigue inside OCP, where the different executives, which is really the one guy, and then he's got the AI called Saint that is going to take over all of Delta City at midnight or whatever. And this guy is going to time the virus to be distributed by Saint, by corrupting Saint, letting Legion take it over, and then distributing the biovirus somehow. Okay? So that's his plan, but we get that a little later. So most of Resurrection is simply literally what the title says about these two RoboCops being rebuilt and, getting back into full operation. The one thing, because in large measure, I defend the acting for the most part. I think most of the people are doing at least a fair job. Certainly there's no Anthony Hopkins or, anything like that to this level. But it's not that bad for the most part. But there is a scene. There is a scene. Because for a while, even into Resurrection a while.
You know what? Listen, yes. Let me help you for a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love Farscape. Farscape is a fantastic show.
Sure.
But there are moments in Farscape where you're like, you could have gotten some better actors.
Yes.
There's just moments.
There are.
It happens. It happens at the best of times.
Oh God. Okay. I'm going to send you a video clip because it's on YouTube. I want you to see this.
Okay.
So that you can experience this as I did.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Oh God, they don't show the Ethernet chat. Oh, I forgot about that part. Okay, hold on. So I'll describe this as I'm going because I'll find the actual moment where it happens. But James Murphy, Alex's son, for a while
did you send it already?
Not yet. I'm trying to scrub so I can tell you when it happens. I'm scrubbing through as I'm talking. So, oh God, oh boy. Oh boy, what to say? Okay, I want you to note down 32 minutes and 36 seconds. You don't actually have to watch that part, but if you just put the video there, that's good enough.
Got it.
So James Murphy, for a fair bit, is angry because I don't know. He's hunting his father because it's almost you could have told me. You know what I mean? You didn't have to, you knew I was alive and you knew you were alive and, I would have been able to accept it, but instead you decided to not tell me. And instead I thought my father was dead when in fact, we could have had a relation, that type of things. They're doing that thing. And the guy who's playing RoboCop, who I largely like, honestly, I largely like him, but this scene where he takes his helmet off and looks at his son and is emoting. It's difficult to watch with a straight face. All right, I found the part. I'm just making sure I've got it right. That is one of the few moments where I went, oh boy, where was an editor? Where was an editor to say, and it's not even just him, it's also the son. It's a bad moment. It's just a bad moment. And a good editor would have trimmed that way down and said, okay, we don't need this to go on quite this long. We can just cut this. All right, so here, I'm going to send it to you now. So the first moment to go to without actually viewing, and for anybody following along at home, you can find this video on YouTube as well. So first go to 32 minutes and 36 seconds and just stop there and look at that image, which you would think is going to be the low point, but it's not. So Lando is currently 32 minutes and 36 seconds, or 35 would probably work. And just see if the freeze frame comes up with a wonderful image for you. I'll wait because it's a beauty.
Is that him?
That's
screaming?
him. Yes, it's him remembering things. So that's
it's
not good.
You know what he kind of looks like? He kind of looks like the guy who does Max Headroom.
Oh, yeah, kind of like Matt Frewer. Yeah, I see it. Yeah,
like Matt Frewer. He looks like Matt Frewer. Okay,
now
what's the next scene?
Now go to 1 hour and 24 minutes even, and just hit play, and give it about, I don't know, 10. Oh, by the way, you will notice that the woman who's the mother, the terrorist, has basically Luke Skywalker's lightsaber as what looks like a weird dildo. It's actually some kind of baton weapon that she never actually uses, but you'll see it briefly. You will notice it because it's very hard to miss that that's clearly what they used was Luke Skywalker's lightsaber as the basis for whatever that baton thing is. You may have already seen it.
God!
You see it?
This is
yeah. It's
sorry. The actor playing his son is definitely
it's rough.
It's rough. Is taking this far more seriously.
Yeah, that guy is good when he's not trying to do high emotions. God. It's better. So you're going to get to a point, probably about an hour, Oh, you're gonna see him take his helmet off, and then look at when he stares at him.
I'm at 124 here.
Yeah, 120. You're getting to 124.
I want
50.
you to see my.
Yeah, here it comes. Watch his look of recognize me, son. Recognize who I am, and you will see what I'm talking about. It just.
Oh my God! Yeah,
it's bad. This is the end of the episode. This is the emotional high point of the episode, and I'm sorry, but these two actors are not able to carry what this needs to be. So, there are moments where, as you said, it's less than ideal, is all I can say. So, but getting over the way the acting looks. This does have the son recognize
the single tear. He's really working on that single tear.
Man, he's trying.
Oh, they're gonna hug.
Yeah, yes, they are. They are going to hug, and
dude,
it's
he's
awkward.
like a foot taller than RoboCop.
RoboCop is very short.
He's like, "Come here, little dad. Let me give you a hug."
So people complained about that, and this is the only time you see it. Otherwise, you never really notice it. But
God, RoboCop is so weak.
He's probably the shortest person in the entire show, without exaggeration.
Oh man, why would you not fix that? Put the man on some lifts. He's a robot.
It's bizarre. Again, for every good thing, a bad thing. So anyway, you could stop watching now, unless you are now captivated by what you're seeing, which you might be. So then we get RoboCop getting into a muscle car and driving. Now, this is again, it's unfortunate where all of this is placed. Because much of the episode I actually thought was, okay, this is a good way to separate them and to set up again that they're going to be fighting, because they already kind of did that, but it was a brief fight. So now they're setting up clearly a bigger fight. And I'm like, okay, this is a good way to do it. And, it makes sense that RoboCable will sort of be evil because he's the tool of somebody, but it's not because he is evil. It's because, again, he's being manipulated. That's good.
Somebody eviled him.
Right. But then they get RoboCop into a muscle car. And I'd almost tell you to watch it because it is, but don't. It's fine. It's hilarious because he's revving the engine for a good 30 seconds where he keeps hitting the gas. You see the shaker engine is vibrating, right? To set up the big kind of, he's going to floor it thing. Yeah. And then he pulls out of the garage at, I kid you not, about 20 miles an hour. And I'm positive. I mean, and it's not even like you can't miss that they're barely moving. And I'm sure it's because you can see, I don't think it's the actor, it's probably a stunt driver, but the person is in, to go to your stormtrooper analogy, he's in the helmet with that visor. Now, if you put your hands up to your eyes to mimic RoboCop's visor, there's no visibility there. So obviously they didn't want the guy to hit the gas and drive into a wall. So they told him, pull out slowly. They had to. But it's there again, an editor would have cut away and you would have heard tires screeching and just seen the back of the car with a normal person driving it. You know what I mean? You could get so there's things where you go, guys, why did you make these decisions? But still, whatever. It still wasn't so bad I stopped watching. It was still, there were neat things, and there was, I liked enough. I'm like, I'm going to stick through it with the end. And then we get to Crash and Burn. And Crash and Burn is essentially, there's some really good but very, very overly long action scenes. But it starts off with RoboCop and friends driving that car through the front of OCP, which is admittedly a neat scene where they just bust through the windows in a muscle car and they get out. And then they're chasing the crazy religious guy who has infiltrated OCP with his daughter to unleash the Legion virus into Saint. And so now we're just wrapping everything up. So it's basically a chase up a skyscraper with RoboCop, and then Cable is there as the crazy guy's bodyguard. And so, you have about 30 minutes of setting up where everybody is, and then the middle 30 is RoboCop and RoboCable just fighting constantly across different floors. It is no kidding a 50-50 affair, because there are some of the fights between RoboCop and RoboCable which are well staged and they are interesting and they are at times actually somewhat amusing because they're doing clever little things. For example, RoboCop and RoboCable are shooting at each other through a glass partition, and that's just so they can have glass shattering, which is fine because it looks neat. But they're literally walking down on either side of the glass, firing at each other, and all the glass is just crashing, which makes no sense because they're invulnerable to each other's guns. So it's almost like Havoc and Cyclops shooting each other, which is just pointless. But, whatever. This is what it is. And I understand what they're doing, which is big gunfight stuff. Well, okay, fine.
If you shoot the same spot over and over again, eventually you'll get through.
Yeah, they never do that, so it doesn't matter. Neither of them has the idea of shooting each other's, the facial part that's exposed. Just blow that out and you've destroyed them. So neither of them aims at that, which is, of course, anybody with a brain would aim at the fleshy part. Nobody does. That's fine. They didn't do it in the movie either, so what the hell am I going to criticize this for? If the Verhoeven movie never had happened, why would I expect this thing to do it? That's okay, since he's not shielding the bottom of his face, which why shield the top if you're not shielding the bottom? It's still your face, but okay, fine. Maybe he just doesn't care about his teeth. In any event, then there's a part where the security guards come into the room, and so the two of them take a break from fighting each other and then just start shooting the security guards, which is, it is actually funny because these security guards are even less equipped than the hunters, and the hunters didn't have a chance. These guys aren't even wearing body armor and they're using Glocks. Why? What are you doing?
Yeah. I'm sorry. You don't pay me enough.
That's what I thought that was going to be the gag. I thought they were going to come in the room, the two of them were going to spin at them, and they were going to run right out. They don't. They get fucking annihilated. They just get wiped out. Fine. Then they turn back to each other, and now they start throwing each other through the walls, through the floors. They crash through a glass floor into all that stuff is actually well done. They're using stunt performers that are throwing through things in the RoboCop armor, and it's holding up really well. It's not breaking visibly. It's not, it's not crumpling like plastic or anything. Like somebody knew what they were doing to make these things look plausible. The problem becomes they keep going on for too long. They just, they're shooting at each other. You
gotta fill that content, man.
Well, this is the thing about this entire thing is twice as long as it should be. Because this was intended to launch a TV series. They should have made it a 2-part pilot movie. 3 hours tops. Cut this thing in half. Because you just keep, when they're firing at each other, it's neat when all the glass is breaking. But then they put slow motion in. And then they just keep shooting. And they keep walking. And they keep shooting. And glass keeps breaking. And you start to get used to it. And you're just like, okay, I got it. Let's do the next thing. Then they do the next thing. You're like, okay, they're doing something different. And then there's a point, and this is where somebody needed to cut this whole sequence out. The whole thing. They crash through another floor and end up in a pond. Like a little, office pond. And they're both knocked out for a couple minutes. And then they both reactivate at the same time, which I actually like because that does sort of make sense. Unlike in movies where two people seem to recover at the same time, even though people have very different recovery rates, two exact same machines, more or less, probably would reboot at roughly the same speed since they've both been rebuilt. So RoboCop is no longer as junky as he was because these women rebuilt him and tried to, fix the problems. So I'm like, okay, the reboot cycles are probably roughly the same. This is like rebooting the same model computer. They will come back at roughly the same time. That's okay. I don't mind that. What are they going to do now? What are we going to do here? And they start having a fist fight and a wrestling match in the pond. And
I thought you were going to tell me there's going to be some kissing.
No, that would have been better. I would have liked that far better. No, instead, it is slow motion, Greco-Roman clunking of two people in RoboCop suits, awkwardly trying to throw each other around and punch. And it just doesn't look good. It looks silly because RoboCop's punching each other. That doesn't work. When RoboCop punches a human and he flies across the room, that's great. When they're punching each other and they're just kind of wobbling a bit, that's not visually interesting. And putting slow-mo in it doesn't help. It actually makes it worse. So that goes on for a while until RoboCable throws RoboCop into a bank of computer screens which emit red lightning because the room is red, which makes no sense, but it knocks out RoboCop and RoboCable goes back up into the server room to help Crazy Guy launch his virus. And I'm like, okay, at least this is over. So now we're at the back third because the fight the battle started off well. It didn't end all that well. It just did not. So now we're in the server room, and this is basically the remainder of it. In the server room, the guy plugs his daughter into the open Ethernet port on the computer and injects his virus successfully into Saint. And the mom breaks into the room Okay, so it's basically crazy guy, Robo-Cable, daughter, mother, the guy who developed Saint, who was working for OCP, but the guy who runs OCP was a dick to him and fired him, I think, 3 times. So now he's working with the terrorists in RoboCop. And so they're in the room, and they managed to, the son was in there briefly and had the EMP device that you saw in that clip. That's what he was holding, an EMP device, which was really just a motherboard part in a plastic case. There's no way that's an EMP device. Or maybe in the future. I don't know. Who cares? And so he's in there. He drops that. They evacuate because Robo-Cable's going crazy and shooting everything. RoboCop comes in the room, and Robo-Cable tackles him out of the room, at which point these blast doors shut, leaving the mother, the daughter... the daughter was also out. The son grabbed the daughter and pulled her out of the room. So it's the mother and the crazy guy. And they start...
Her ex-husband.
Yeah, her ex-husband and stealth terrorist leader. Because the other women are dead. They got shot up. So, which I was kind of surprised they shot them up, but they do. Because they were actually just kind of innocent bystanders, but they got blown away. And so they start pixelating. Because the virus is beginning to turn them into pixels. Or something. It's almost worth watching. Actually, I will give you this. I will send you this as well, because I think you're going to laugh at this. Prime directives. It's called Crash and Burn. Let's see if the other one was on YouTube. I'm positive this one is. Here it is. Yes, let me just get you to the part where they start to turn into pixels for some reason. Where is it?
This is their interpretation of what the virus does.
Of a biotechnic whatever. I don't even know what it's supposed to be, but whatever. the effect is not great, and it keeps going on. Again, there's a severe lack of editing present. Obviously, because they were now go to 1 hour
budget. Wait,
there was that. Go to 1 hour and 11 minutes. I guess that's probably the best part to see it start. Because it just goes on.
Who is the crazy husband?
That's the guy with the blonde hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's been in stuff, but I don't think he's a main guy. He's been in things, though. He's somebody we've probably seen.
So 1 hour and how many?
1:11 and maybe 15, 20 seconds. It starts at 1:11. You'll start to see it. They're going to start looking at each other's hands, and they start to turn into pixels. And just... You see what's happening, right? They're literally turning into what looks like heat wave pixels. I don't know. And this is them starting to disintegrate. So she's going to, he delivers some line about, I always really did love you, but you're not going to be able to beat me because you're a woman. That's literally what he says, which is,
he explodes into pixels.
Well, she's going to kick him into an explosion of pixels. So you'll see that because she's like, all right, it's time to die. And she drop kicks him.
Is the virus trapped in the room?
No, there it is because they're in the room with it, but it's meant to be spread once Saint takes over Delta City. It's going to go everywhere.
Yeah.
And so she drop kicks the ex-husband. He goes into a wall and vomits light, Lopan style.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, and then she's going to just keep disintegrating for a couple minutes, as you'll see, and she then reaches at the last minute and triggers the EMP. Now, before this, and I wasn't sure what was going on here, but I had a hunch this is where it was going. And again, this is clever. This is actually, for what you're watching, what I'm about to describe doesn't seem like it would be in the same show, but it is. Before this, because I had said that RoboCop and Robo-Cable exit the room, right? They're fighting. Yeah. And there's a point where Robo-Cable, I think, punches RoboCop so hard that he spins around, at which point Robo-Cable, he has one of those spikes in his hand too. So he takes the spike out Wolverine style. Yeah.
Dude, the crazy father, the crazy terrorist guy.
Yeah, who is it?
That's Forever Knight.
Oh, that's who it is. Okay, so there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I saw that face and I was like, wait a minute. I know that face. That's Forever Knight.
I recognize that's who it is.
Sorry.
Okay, so, all right. No problem.
Go ahead.
So, because this is important for the EMP triggering. So Robo-Cable then jabs RoboCop in the back of the skull with his spike. And RoboCop collapses and goes offline.
The data spike.
Yeah, the data spike. Yeah, okay. So he hits him in the back of the head, which, for what we're shown, should kill him. But basically, RoboCop collapses and goes offline. You see the whole, his monitor shuts down and it says offline. And then the screen shuts off. So then the mom, as you're seeing disintegrating into pixels, is able to summon just enough strength to trigger the EMP, which blows up and knocks out all the electronics and everything in Delta City.
Except for RoboCop, because he's off.
So when RoboCop wakes up, he finds that there's a video message from RoboCable in his memory where he says, the only way you can be protected from an EMP is to be offline. So RoboCable basically sacrificed himself to make sure that RoboCop was offline because he realized that he was being manipulated, but that he was too damaged to be recovered. And rather than risk turning evil again, he'd rather just leave RoboCop in charge because he says, you're my friend and I know that you're a good cop. Because then he remembers the fact that he got an award for basically executing a guy with no trial and says, you're the person that needs to protect the city. I made sure that could happen. Go out there and do what you're best at. Oh, by the way, I've erased all your prime directives. So you are now a completely free being. And so RoboCop has a little command come up and it says list prime directives and it comes up none found. So
do whatever the fuck you please. Yeah.
Well, it's essentially what John Cable says, because he's himself in his video message, which makes sense. He's a digital projection of his mental self or whatever it was from the Matrix, or a digital projection of your mental, whatever. Anyway, a mental projection of your digital self, whatever it is. Because he's basically like, I trust you. I know you're a good cop. You don't need these directives. You will do this because you're a good cop. So I'm taking away this thing that is essentially the last piece of manipulation left from OCP.
It's an interesting statement on policing in the modern age, isn't it?
Well, yes, there's certainly a lot that would be different about this today. There would be a lot different. But in the world of this, this is one of those, crime is so bad that whatever, you'll beg for cops even if they're corrupt because they're still better than, getting raped and knifed most of the time. So now we're at the end, and it's basically the guy who built Saint, who was basically a very, very put upon programmer. Anybody who watches the show, if they are a programmer at a big company, they will feel the most connection to this character because he is just constantly harassed by everybody, and he's the genius programmer. So this is clearly something written. I would not be surprised the person who wrote this used to be a programmer. So that guy's alive, the daughter's alive, RoboCop's alive, and the son is alive. And so and RoboCop is talking to the little girl, and the programmer says, I'll take care of her because I think he had a wife and daughter and they died. So he basically said, well, I built Saint and he was kind of my son, but I lost him. So I'll take care of her because, I'm good at taking care of people, except for Saint, who went fucking crazy, but that's because he was infiltrated, I guess. And RoboCop's like, thank you. And so they walk off, they're done. So now the son's like, well, what are you going to do? So RoboCop and him are sitting there and the son says, well, what are you going to do next? And RoboCop puts on his helmet and says, well, I'm going to go and protect the innocent. And he's like, well, that's good because they're going to need you, at which point the camera then kind of swivels around and you see that Delta City is completely dark and you just hear gunfire and rape and screaming and pillaging and looting and everything else. And then the final shot is RoboCop walking towards the city and then it ends, which is a logical setup for a series and is actually a good way to set up RoboCop as kind of the superpower again, because now there's no technology left or nothing functional.
Oh yeah,
except him.
At least in the city, yeah.
Right. Well, and that's this is only concerned with the city. I mean, this is basically Delta City, and that's it. So overall, it is exactly the same as it has been the whole time. It's a 50-50 series. There's lots of little. This is an idea that somebody could pick up and make right now into a series. They could do the same basic story of the setup, although they would fix things. But the thing that bothers me, or that is frustrating, the most frustrating element is, if they had cut this thing in half with the same budget, they probably could have fixed the problems. If they had condensed this down into 2 90-minute episodes instead of 4, that essentially doubles your budget, more or less. And they could have made this look better, and the editing would have corrected some of these issues, because that's one of the biggest problems is you just see scenes that go on for far too long, and it drains them of all their impact and energy and excitement and interest because they're too fucking long.
I wonder if some degree though, if the studio that basically said, okay, we'll pay for it. They're like, we want 4 episodes or we want 4 movies or something like that. They were given an order of a certain length.
I have a hunch this was meant to be more chopped up episodes because there are parts where it feels like a commercial break or a cliffhanger. And I have a feeling that they ended up smushing it in together and extending it as opposed to making it, let's say, 16 episodes. They then just kind of pushed it into 4 episodes. I don't know. I didn't, there's not much information about the show because it's not well regarded. So you don't find much about it. But maybe it is what you're saying, but it also could be the opposite, where this was meant to actually be a full season or a short pilot season. Yeah. And then for whatever reason, maybe they looked at it and didn't have confidence or whatever. They decided to push it into these 4 movies. But there are enough good ideas. There are enough good moments that it does feel like a missed opportunity as opposed to just a shitty series. I would not throw this thing away. It's just that it's got a lot of flaws. For somebody who wants to see more of RoboCop, if you really love the idea of the first movie and you want to see more stuff that's trying to do that, there are far worse things you could watch. You're going to have to grit your teeth through some of it because there is some, as Lando saw, there are some dodgy special effects and some less than stellar acting moments. But again, as Lando said, that's true even of series that we revere. So I think there is enough in this that you sit there and go, boy, this could have been something interesting. This could have actually been a movie. This could have been a different sequel.
About 2 months from now, your memory of this show will be awesome.
Yes.
Because in some time, you will have recontextualized the show into the special effects of the movie.
Yes.
And you will remember it far cooler than it was.
Oh, definitely.
And in that respect, it's worth watching just so you can have those cool memories down the road.
Yeah, I'm not sorry I watched it because I think there were interesting ideas. They had enough clever little moments that I went, okay, this is not a brain dead cash in or a really stupid idea on how to do something. There have been really dumb attempts at doing continuations of shows, that type of stuff, where they literally add nothing. They just want to make another version of the same thing we've seen a million times, and it sucks top to bottom. This is not that. I do believe from what's in there that the people involved were trying to make the best version of what they felt the continuation of the story was. And the fact that it does seem to largely work, and like I said, that ending does feel like a very organic, I mean, the technovirus is dumb. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that was...
Yeah.
That's not great.
I mean...
it didn't need to be as grandiose as it was. It could have simply been that, that the AI was corrupted. It was just corrupted, but it had taken over the city and they had to blow it because they had no other way to do it because it had been given too much, power.
Honestly, it didn't need to be I don't know. I'd have to see it to understand why he hated people so much.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter because I feel like that it just gets into silliness. Whereas if it had been something where,
if it was like Ra's al Ghul, right, where they're like, this city's got to burn. People need to understand, how bad the corruption is. People have to burn. You know what I mean? Like if he was one of these guys, like the city has to die before it can come back, or some bullshit like that. You know what I mean? Like
right, but this went further because he killed himself.
Yeah.
You saw it. That's the thing. It's like, okay, wait, this guy just didn't care about life at all. It's not that he was trying to fix something. He just thought there was no saving life. So it's like, oh, okay. I mean, he was clearly presented as a lunatic, like a madman. Whereas the guy who's running OCP for most of the show, Damien, if they had made it where, because he was clearly just greedy and self-absorbed and didn't care about anything but running OCP, if he had gone in, you know how in RoboCop 2 they keep messing with his directives and they end up neutering him because they give him 3,000 directives?
Yeah, where he's uber friendly.
Don't smoke. Thank you for not smoking.
Kids. Yeah.
Yes. And he's like, what are you doing? They're robbing me. He's like, one in the hand, 2 in the hand. Wait, 1 in the hand is worth 2 in the bushel. Yeah, that shit. This could have been that, where this guy kept tinkering with the Saint program to, he's like, okay, I never want to be not chairman. I always want to be the chief executive. So I'm going to put in director for that. And basically made Saint go crazy or became self-aware or something where they realized that it was going to destroy the city or, kill people. And they couldn't stop it but the EMP, and it still results in the reset of Delta City and RoboCop's ascension as kind of the important peacekeeper again. Like, you could have done it without it getting to these grandiose and honestly way over the top. You didn't need a girl with an Ethernet port for a belly button is where I'm going. Like, that just was...
Hold on. Does the Ethernet port ever come into the thing?
You see it, and then you assume he connects to the computer, but you don't see it. You don't actually see the action of it. They show it. And he says, okay, now you're going to deliver. I think the idea was she was incubating the virus and then it would transfer into the computer via the Ethernet port. I think that's what the mechanism was. But you don't see it. You don't see him like jack her belly button in or anything like that. You just see him pull her shirt up enough to expose that and then say something like, you're the key to Legion, my dear, or something like that. And then the next thing is it's in there. So, they cut away and it's RoboCable and RoboCop kind of fighting, and then they come back and it's been done. Probably because they realized there was no way to make that look any less goofy than that stupid, or actually that it actually would look goofier than the belly button. Whatever. That's what I'm saying is that's where it crosses over. And you're like, okay, God, you went too far. This is too far for a show that is essentially pretty low stakes. Although you do have to wonder if that virus would eventually get out into the open air and destroy the whole planet. I don't know. It's not well defined because it's too silly. It would have been far easier to just have Saint become somehow Skynet-ish after they'd already transferred too much control to him. Because essentially that's where it gets to, even before Legion is. Saint basically has total control of the OCP building. So when Legion's in there, nobody can do anything. Even the executives have no control anymore because Saint's running everything. So
yeah.
That's what I'm saying is there are good ideas in here that are unfortunately at every turn paired with one of the dumbest possible ideas or the shoddiest execution possible because there was no budget or they had to fill time or something.
2 months, maybe 3. In 2 or 3 months, it'll be the awesomest RoboCop thing ever.
Well, I will never watch it again, but I'm not sorry I watched it because I think there was...
RoboCable is going to be stalking your mind from here on out.
Well, let's put it this way. If somebody came to me and said, we're going to try to relaunch a RoboCop series, I would use a lot of this for that because I think there's a lot of good in here. I would be like, all right, I'll write it, but I'm going to use this as the template.
The fact that RoboCable uses the data spike to turn RoboCop off to save him from the EMP, I mean, he didn't know that the EMP was necessarily going to go off, but that's still there's a lot of cool ideas. It's kind of like, oh God, who was it? There was a great sci-fi writer who basically said, the problem is that good ideas do not a good story make. You can have lots of good ideas, but you need to put them all together in the right way to have it be a good story. And what you've got here is parts of a good story.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I mean, actually, I can reduce it even easier. Where I was saying, okay, Saint goes crazy. It doesn't even have to be that Saint goes crazy. The guy who's running OCP is a megalomaniac and intends to take over Delta City. And the only way to stop him, because he's got the security system locked into his command, is to fry it. That's it. And in the process, it blows up Delta City. And there you go. So you don't even need the AI to even be evil. You just need the person who's manipulating it to be not quite as crazy as this guy was, just simply so tunnel visioned on his own dominance of the OCP company that, there are many real world examples of executives who allow people to die because they care about the company more than people. Very many of them. I would just
have the mad scientist guy wanting to basically use the AI and his virus to take over, to basically be able to control every person in the city like they were a robot.
Sure.
To eventually basically have his own army like that.
That's it. Yeah. And that's all you need.
Something like that. That makes more sense,
It makes way more sense. You don't have to have that stupid pixel effect.
Yeah.
You can just have a guy in a server room. Oh boy, that thing is bad. So like I said, for people who are like me, this would be worth watching. Because I really was at a certain point after about the first hour of the first episode, I went, okay, I'm going to look at this very analytically and see what about this is working and not. So some of my entertainment was the process of breaking this thing down. I will freely admit. That's what let me overlook the stupid parts, which for some people they wouldn't be able to overlook unless they were looking at it as is there anything good here? Or is this so bad I can't even... Because at this point, if something is that awful, I generally won't keep watching it. If it is literally devoid of any merit, I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'll just stop. And I won't bother. This is not that. It's just, unfortunately, a failure of, maybe they needed a slightly better writer in the room or a script doctor. Not even an editor, not even a writer necessarily, but just somebody to come in and polish it up. There's a lot of people who do that. You have people who come in and they take something and they go, okay, there's some rough edges in here. Let's polish this up and let's clean it up. Somebody with an outside perspective that comes in and looks at stuff that's been written and says, okay, yeah, we're going to tighten this here. The dialogue doesn't quite make sense. We're going to write this a little differently. Kind of what the prequels were lacking for George Lucas. Somebody to come in and say, all right, got the raw talent. It's there. Let's take this coal and let's make it into a diamond. Let's Superman 3 it, crush that coal into a diamond. That was missing, and the budget was missing. With one of those two things, a lot of this would have been, I think, or a good editor, somebody to tighten it up from the editing even all the raw parts. I'm going to look because I'm sure there's a fan edit of this somewhere that's probably far better. I will watch that because I'd be curious, having just watched this. So it's just missing something that could have taken it to where it probably would have been good, if not great. As it is now, it is dead center. It has its good parts. It has equally awful parts. And either you have to be a hardcore RoboCop completionist or a weirdo like me to really get something out of it. Anybody else will probably not make it past the first movie. So that's my overall summary of it. But it's not as bad, I don't think, as the reviews. And actually, some of the reviews are quite good. I should be fair about that. There are glowing reviews of this because I think other people have recognized that they were earnestly trying to make... I mean, there are gory parts. Some of the satire is funny. The problem there is, I think I mentioned this in my last review, they tend to throw too much of it at you at one time. They should have spread it out. Again, just little things that could have benefited it overall. So it's an interesting curiosity. It's not an unknown gem, nor is it the worst series that you'll ever watch with RoboCop. It's just something weird in the middle that never totally works and never totally fails. And just for that particular description, for me, it was worth watching. Whether it is for you, much more difficult for me to say. So I cannot blanket recommend it, nor can I condemn it. It exists in a weird phantom zone space where if you want to put yourself into that mirror, just understand you're going to be swimming around in it for a while. But,
You'll have to leave it to listeners to
that's right.
Let you know what they think.
So did Andy Dufresne kill his wife? And maybe you want to watch the RoboCop series. That's where we are. Pick one. Hey, watch Shawshank no matter what if you've never seen it. That's a guaranteed good weekend because that's a great movie. RoboCop.
Oh, we've mentioned a ton of great movies here.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we have. But RoboCop is a definite caveat emptor. Is emptor? Let the buyer beware. Whatever the Latin is for that is definitely RoboCop.
Yeah.
Either way, have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.